I want to break down why we care about feed optimization, and then we'll get into in more detail what actually is involved when we talk about optimizing feeds. So the name of the game here is to connect with users that are most likely to click on your ads and buy your products, right? So that part's important, the buying part, because we want to connect with users that have some indication that they're ready to go, that they're ready to purchase. And if you look at the example on the right, a search query in this example is Nike Air Max running shoes, size 12 black. And if you look at the ad, it says Nike Air Max Motion 2 men's shoes in black, size 12, and then there's the MPN. So it's not going to be a perfect match. Rarely will it ever be a perfect match. But the important thing here is that we do have the keywords in the ad that somebody's likely to be searching with. So that's just to kind of drive that point home. That's the central importance of feed optimization. What do we actually do when we talk about optimizing feeds? There's typically two overarching components. One is clean data. And so we don't want any messy HTML. We don't want missing important words. We want the data to be mapped correctly to the specifications of each channel that we're sending to. And we want relevancy. We want keywords, again, from the last point, that users are likely to be searching with. And so on the right-hand side, this is actually a screenshot directly from the Feedonomics platform. You can see on the right, it says Air Zoom Pegasus. That's an example of a basic title that we would be getting potentially through many different mechanisms. One could be from our direct BigCommerce site integration to be able to pull all of your product data out that way. We can pull data from an FTP. We can pull multiple data sources together inside the platform. But this data that we're seeing here on the right would be the raw data before we've applied all of our rules to enhance it. And on the left-hand side, you're seeing the optimized or the transformed data, Nike Air Zoom Pegasus blue running shoes, size 12. And that's just the title. If you look lower down on the description area, you can see that in the original raw data, we have HTML in the description, and in the enhanced optimized data, we've pulled the HTML out. And so one of the useful functions inside of the platform here is the ability to see this change highlighting, so that when our team, and we'll get into more of this a little bit later, but when our team's going through and optimizing your data on your behalf, they can see the raw and the transformed data side by side. It's a very useful functionality. So that's what we mean when we're talking about feed optimization. We're gonna look at all of your feeds for all the different channels, and we're gonna look at them through the lens of the best practices of the channels that you want to go to. And then we're going to, using our tool sets, our platform, we're going to build in these transformers that effectively enhance and optimize the data before it goes out to these different channels to get you the best results. Yeah, I want to dig into this a little bit more. Sean alluded to this. Basically, the idea is that optimization requirements on your website are not the same as optimization requirements on third-party social search and marketplace environments. He brought up a great point that when you're on the Nike website, you're kind of configurably processing everything, right? You can see that you're looking at, it's a red shoe. You don't need to see that it's red, unless you're colorblind like me. You might need it to say red, and then it'll help clarify. I see Brent raising his hand too. There's more of us out there in the world. And you know that you're at Nike.com. You know that you've sort of followed the whole trail to get there, like Sean was saying. You can get away with just calling it a LeBron 17 low pH. But when you're out there in the wild west of Google Shopping or Amazon or advertising on different social channels, all the more important that you have the keywords that are going to differentiate you from that other advertiser that may be spending just as much for clicks, right? They might be saying, I'm willing to spend just as much dollar for dollar on a click as you. So how is Google's algorithm going to decide which PLA to show and which one to prioritize, right? And that's where data optimization becomes so crucial, is it becomes that differentiating factor. So on the right-hand side, you'll see a few examples. The important thing here is that each of these different channels has a different set of best practices. There's a lot of overlap. I don't want to overstate the degree of differences. There's overlap, which is why we can use one platform and one set of rules to broadly enhance your data across a spectrum of different channels. But there are also nuanced differences, and you do need to play to each of those if you're really gonna perform at peak. So like Google has maybe 70 characters that are visible. Amazon maybe has 200 characters. You can see that the Amazon title is much more keyword rich and dense. And then in the Facebook title, you'll see that we're actually not even including the size in there. And why? Because Facebook ads are so image centric, and if you just they're not as much query driven, right? So like with Google, somebody's searching with size 12, that's an indicator that they know that they're a size 12 and they want to buy a size 12 product. You want size 12 to be inside of the title so that you can capture that user. With Facebook, it's a different sort of demand, right? It's not query driven. So the idea here is just to show the images in a remarketing context, and for that reason, you don't really need size in there, because otherwise you just have a bunch of images that are basically the same, because they're all different sizes, but they look the same, right? So there are differences across each of these channels. We don't expect you to learn what we've had to figure out over the last 5 years optimizing thousands of feeds. Obviously, you can, and we're happy to teach you, and we can go through all of that, and you can execute on all of these ideas inside the platform. But one of the greatest sources of value that we provide is this ability to not only bring in the technology, but all of the knowledge about how these different channels work and what does the best on these channels to you, so that we can make sure that your data is performing at optimum.